Hey everybody, it's Shelby from Stang Books, and it's time for my week in review this week. Yes, my wardrobe is a little bit more apparent to wishful thinking than actuality, but maybe if I keep dragging out my sweaters that I want to wear so badly, the weather will eventually cooperate. I actually had a really busy week this week, and not just a busy week, but like a dragging reading week. In large part because of one of the books I had picked for my bingo challenge, and it was giving me just fits to get through. So I only had 5 books read this week, one of which was a short. Really slow week for me, until you factor in that the book that was giving me fits was over 1,000 pages, and since most of the books I read are between 200 and 400 pages, the 1,000 kind of makes up for it. So this week I started off my week with 2 books by Lou Harper. They were back-to-back in the series, so I wanted to read one before reading the other. First, I had to finish up Late Night Snack, which is the 1.5 book in the Sanguine series, before I could move on to Temper Sanguine. Now, this series does take place in a modern Chicago. Gabe is a vampire hunter. Well, in the first book of the series, he has slain any vampire he comes across. Well, when he shows up in Chicago, he ends up meeting Harvey, and in meeting Harvey, he finds his world spun on its head, because Harvey is a vegetarian vampire and was forcefully turned, and through Harvey, Gabe learns that there are different sides to the vampire society. So at the end of the first book, Gabe has agreed to work for the big boss vampire in the area, and in this little short, he has been sent to find a rogue vampire who is not exactly following vampire statutes on bloodsucking, and he's kind of set up to play bait. Well, this one's a little fun because Harvey, in order to follow Gabe, does a little bit of cross-dressing so that he can follow his boyfriend to the club and make sure he's protected, even though Gabe doesn't really need his help. It's a cute, funny, quirky, and just a great little touch base with these 2 guys as they're settling into their relationship. On to Temper Sanguine, the second book in the series. A lot of the threads from the first series kind of get played out into the second book, which is the last book in the series currently written. As far as I know, the author has no intentions of continuing the series. But in this book, Gabe gets called in and basically discovers that there is a scientist going around creating, essentially, rogue vampires. And he's using them for experiments, and so they're sent to New York to find out what's going on, and this leads them ultimately across the pond and into Europe. And it's a whole mystery as to exactly what's going on, but Gabe and Harvey are sent to try and figure it all out. This was fun. It wasn't as quirky and funny as the first 2 books. There was, without the sexual tension between Harvey and Gabe, that in the first book it was a will they, won't they, vampire hunter and vampire. This lost a little bit of that, but the mystery was good and the action was fun, and it was nice to see these boys kind of continuing on. I did give both these books 4 stars. I enjoyed them. They were entertaining. But I think I enjoyed the first book more because there was more depth between what was going on with Harvey and Gabe and what they were discovering about themselves. So it was a fun adventure. It was quirky. It was cute. So my next book this week. This is a book that I've had on my TBR for ages. And that is Afterimage by Santino Hassel and Ice. This is their ace, but this is the second book in their Company of Shadows series. Each of the books in this series were originally released as free fiction online, and they are all over 1,000 pages. The first book, Evenfall, was really, really great, and I really loved it. It's incredibly dark. And recently, the authors have gone back in and taken the original book and released it in 2 separate director's cut editions. I think they're like 250 pages each, 300 pages each. So significantly cutting down and trimming a lot of the excess from the first book. So I'd kind of been holding off on reading the second book in the series because I would rather read the director's cut. But they have said that they're working on other things and there is no timeline for them getting to these director cuts. So due to needing to read a 2-authored book for bingo, I decided I was going to dive in and finally pick up Afterimage. This world is a post-apocalyptic world. It is set in the United States in New York, and this is after the start of the Third World War, and countries around the world did drop nuclear bombs, and a lot of the world's population and governments were wiped out. After this was the rise of the Agency. Now, the Agency is a take-no-prisoners. They will do anything for U.S. governmental powers. Their agents are ranked by levels, and level 10 to get the toughest assignment, and they're expected to just take whatever the agency tells them to do and do it. Currently, there are only 2 level 10s, Cassian and Sin. And Sin is one of our main characters. He was raised in secret and basically trained to be nothing but an assassin. At 14, he's taking out entire contingents of people, no compulsions, and most people think he's crazy. He's been basically tortured by the agency for different things, and in the first book, he's pretty much on his last legs of they aren't sure that his use is worth his danger, and so they've decided to put him with a partner. Sin and Boyd are partnered together. Boyd is the son of one of the heads of the agency. He has no prior training at all when he steps into this role. And Boyd is very cut off from the world, very shut down, very analytical, and does not react to things with emotion at all. There's a ton of really dark, crazy things that happen in the first book that bring them together. But by the end of the book, you're like, oh my god, Boyd and Sin, and like Sin is one of my favorite characters of all time. I'm obsessed with him. I think he's amazing, and the psychology of him as a character is incredibly fascinating because he is a born and bred assassin and should be like cold as ice, but you can just feel the pain underneath and the want of someone to step in and care for him. And so he is incredibly drawn to Boyd because Boyd is the first person who's ever stood up and said it's not right the way he's treated. Sin and Boyd at the start of this book are together. And we're happy because they're together. But you know when this book starts that that's not going to stay that way. So I did not want to read it. And the first 30% was really difficult for me. It took me forever. And I kept putting it down. And I just couldn't force myself to sit and get into it. Partially because I was dreading 1,000 pages. Partially because I was dreading 1,000 pages that I'm not going to enjoy all of because I'm going to be hating what is going on between my two people. And I was getting really frustrated with the things that Boyd was pulling in the first half because when this book starts, Sin is spiraling. He has basically had a complete break and is hallucinating and can't sleep, and his insomnia has made his hallucinations worse, and he's completely losing his mind. And at the same time, Boyd is being inducted into level 10 training. And basically for 3 months, is not allowed contact with anyone except for like 3 days out of the entire time. And he's just going to be in this isolated training. There's a lot of reveals in this. There was less of the missions that they would do in the first book. This was more like Boyd's training and what went into it and the craziness and the spiraling of Sin as he tried to find stability and then actually going through some actual therapy, really getting a diagnosis. And this really deals with his mental illness. And he's trying to become a more stable human being. But it does cause the fracturing of Boyd and Sin. With hope, there's hope. They are not destroyed forever, because if they were destroyed forever, I would not be reading book 3. I'm definitely now not going to wait, and I need to read book 3, which is another 1,000 pages. Once I sat down and powered through, though, it was so good and so moving, and I just felt for Sin so much, and I just wanted to cuddle him, at the same time smacking Boyd upside the back of the head for being an idiot. I really, really enjoyed this book. I gave it 4 stars because it was so angsty and hard to read, and I hated some of the decisions that Boyd made, and there were a couple characters in here that got added to my loathe list, and you were dead to me. It'll be really interesting to see where this series goes in the next book. I really do look forward to reading it. Fair warning, there is heavy amounts of torture, and there are times when they do get tortured, and there are times where you are like, oh my god, how could you do that to someone? And I don't just mean physical torture, it's like psychological torture, and it's dark, 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 but so good. Oh. Next up this week, I read Playing to Win by Avery Cockburn. This is from her Glasgow Lads series. This is the second full book in the series. She does have a prequel book, so I always feel like this is the third book in the series. The series centers around a soccer team in Glasgow that plays for the Amateur Soccer League, but they are a entirely gay team, or gay supporting. This book is a lot less about the soccer team and a lot more about the political climate of Scotland. This book is set during the Scottish referendum for separation from Great Britain. Colin has been raised in the stews as someone whose family has had to rely on government subsidies in order to survive and is struggling to make his way through college. There's a lot of family drama that has kept them struggling to get by, and so he is very much on the side of the Yes team, Yes for secession, and wants to see a greater Scotland, to be able to fight for stronger subsidies and fight for the working class. And then you have Lord Andrew. Now, Andrew is a member of the Scottish aristocracy. He has been raised by his family to believe in the right of the upper class, and he is being groomed for political power. He is a staunch Tory, and does believe very strongly in the political aspirations and political philosophies of his family. He is very much a no against secession, because if they were to secede, then a lot of the power and influence and wealth that his family maintains as a lord would be lost. The other problem for Lord Andrew is that he is the first aristocrat to come out as openly gay. So Colin injured in the last book and has been recovering from an MCL tear. Now he's ready to get back onto the football field as his knee is finally healing, and during all of that time, Lord Andrew got involved with the charity aspects of the team and bringing them more to prominence. And so now their worlds have kind of collided and the sparks fly between them. This book is very much about these two men figuring out their political place, their place in the world, what they truly want in life, and struggling to find a happy medium for two people who are at polar opposite ends of their belief systems. And it's through their discussions and their arguments that they begin to open each other's minds to another way. Lord Andrew comes to realize a lot about himself. I keep saying Lord Andrew, just Andrew. It was a really interesting way to showcase the Scottish referendum and what was going on at this time. It was just really, really well written. The dialect and the culture and world of Glasgow is so well depicted in the series. There are times where, as an American, there's certain sentences that I go, oh, wait, okay, yeah, now I know what that means. So just really beautiful book. It was probably my favorite of the series so far. I did give it 4.5 stars. I really, really enjoyed this book, and I love this series. I really like the way Avery Cockburn writes. And my last book this week was His Hearth by Mary Calms, the first book in her Warder series. And the thing with Mary Calms for me is I'm very hit or miss with her. I either really like her books a lot, or I'm really kind of meh about them. This fell in my meh category. It is an urban fantasy romance, and it just did not come together. So in this book, Julian Nash is just about to be promoted within his agency, his advertising agency, when he walks in on his current boyfriend, basically sleeping with another member of the agency. Well, it comes right at the beginning of a dinner where he's supposed to be introducing his boyfriend to the head of the company when Ryan Dean shows up. Now, Ryan is one of Julian's clients. He is a local celebrity and hosts a local television show, and Julian's had kind of a crush on him for a long time, but always felt that Ryan was out of his league. But Ryan steps in and expresses an interest in Julian, so Julian ends up taking him to this dinner, and Ryan continues to hit on him all night and basically say, you need to come home with me. And this is where the story spirals for me. Because all the way up through this, we've been led to believe that Julian was, I want a relationship, I want it based on something more than sex, and then he ends up going home with Ryan and craziness ensues. It's not structured well. The characterization of both of these guys were very quintessential Mary Calms, but they felt like their personalities were interchangeable at times, and their reactions were not true to what you would expect from the characters as they'd been established. And it's 75% of the way through this book before you get your first paranormal element. I had so many questions by the end of the book that I just was like, I don't understand who these people are. How does this world work? Julian is so understanding and accepting of it, and he has no frame of reference, and it did not gel together well at all. But it was very quintessential Marie Calms, and I just feel like with her, she either is really, really good, and I buy the way she writes her characters, or the way she writes her characters is really unbelievable, and they're not someone that I can get behind. This was a 3-star read, and I just was not a fan of them as a couple because of how things came together. There were some interesting elements that I was like, ooh, this could be really interesting. I wonder what that means. But it all got introduced at 75% of the way through the story. And so some of the betrayals of the ideas that she introduced in the beginning of the book felt off because of when she'd established these characters to be a certain way, and it felt like that was not consistent throughout the book. I don't know if I'll continue the series right away. I might. I'd be curious to see whether it gets better because I do think this was one of her earlier stories. And I have had series of hers where I did not like the first book and liked later books in the series. So I might continue the series. The character that was introduced to be the lead in the second book was somebody I was curious about. He seemed interesting, so We'll see. I don't know if I'll rush to it very quickly. Anyway, that was my week this week. Not a ton of books, but that 1,000-page monster in the middle. That kind of killed things. Hopefully this week will be a little bit better. I'll get through a few more, but I did knock out a couple challenge books with this. I had Temper Sanguine on my list. His Hearth and Afterimage were both bingo books for me, and Playing to Win was also a bingo book, and on a couple of my other challenges as well. So, nice challenge books, knocked out a bunch this week. It'll be great to see what I get to next week. Let me know if you've read any of these books, liked it, give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, and I hope to talk to you soon. Okay, bye!